That's right. Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And tonight we're here to break down, in spoilerific detail, the smash hit blockbuster that is Aquaman.
Yeah.
Dragon, let me ask you something just really quick, just because I'm paranoid. Do you hear like background music on my end?
Not really.
No. Are you sure? Because I have thin walls and my dad's listening to something really loud in the other room, so I just want to make sure that's not going to be an issue.
I mean, if it's there, I mean, I'd have to like really, really listen to it, but I'm not really hearing anything.
Okay, okay. All right, that's fine. Okay, so Aquaman. Oh boy, man, oh man. This is one of the more popular movies in the DC extended universe, if that's even still a thing or not. Who knows what the state of that is at this point. Dragon, I'm just like I feel so bad for the Batman movie. It's like that poor thing. It's like I want, like, forget the Nicolas Cage Superman movie. I want a documentary about that movie.
I really don't think it's quite comparable, but it's definitely it's in a dire place.
But Aquaman is not in a dire place, Dragon. This movie is it's doing gangbusters. It's not only very popular with fans, it's also making a lot of money. It's the number one at the box office by a pretty significant margin for 2 weeks straight. Not bad, not bad. Dragon, just to give my personal opinions of this movie, suffice to say, I like it. I don't love it by any stretch. I think it's a very, it's a very formidable action adventure blockbuster. What I like about it the most is that it feels more like kind of like a globe-trotting Indiana Jones type movie than a superhero movie. It definitely does a lot to differentiate itself in that regard. But I don't know, Dragon. As we'll break it down, to me, it's like I admire what the film is trying to do more than I actually think it succeeds in that. Like I feel like it's kind of to me, it kind of feels like an ambitious Pirates of the Caribbean kind of movie. It's like it's in that same sort of Gore Verbinski vein. I'm not kind of comparing it to a Pirates of the Caribbean sequel or anything. I'm just saying it's got that same kind of like globe-trotting element, but with also the cool fantasy stuff comes some messy plot stuff. So I don't know, it's a mixed bag for me. And I got to admit, Dragon, on a technical level and on a storytelling level, Aquaman is certainly a better movie than Justice League. But for me, I think that I still like Justice League a little bit better, just because Justice League is it's this weird kind of potent mix of, like, when Justice League works, it really works, like the stuff with the Flash and Henry Cavill's Superman, in spite of the weird mustache thing. But when Justice League doesn't work, honestly really funny and really entertaining and campy in a Batman and Robin sort of way. So just the complete package, like, I don't know, as like a connoisseur of that kind of weird, altruistic, funky, uh, art that didn't really turn out so good. I find Justice League to be incredibly watchable. But I don't know, Aquaman is just it's fine. It's like it's not exactly lighting my world on fire by any means, the same way Spider-Verse or Mary Poppins Returns is at the moment. But it's good. It's solid. I think it'll probably stand a pretty good chance to be in my top 20 movies of the year, which is pretty significant considering I've seen probably close to 60 movies this year. I'd say it's probably comfortably in the top third of movies I've seen this year. It's just, I just don't think it's one that I'm going to be coming back to in 5 years or so, being like, oh man, 2018 was really the year of Aquaman cinematically. But it's good enough, and I think maybe throughout this conversation you might convince me to like it a bit more. That's what we're here to do. So
Right, right. So yeah, so Aquaman, Aquaman is a character in the DCEU interpretation. He's a bit of a he started off really a mixed bag, but he always showed potential to me.
My man.
Right. So Jason Momoa, I think he always showed great potential, but there always like something was kind of fumbling about the guy every time we tried introducing him in the other movies, where they really basically here what we have with the Aquaman movies. I feel they towed the line of the Broadway Aquaman we had seen in the other movies, but thankfully Jason Momoa, I think he really showed his care for the character. He always kind of presented that. I remember even when on Justice League, I heard some of the behind the scenes stuff, and this always filled me with confidence that Jason Momoa would be the guy for Aquaman because I heard that. Bear in mind, it was kind of different than what turned out here for a myriad of reasons. But Jason Momoa had done the research that definitely paid off in this movie with the Jeff Johns stuff that really translated more so here. And like the whole the idea in Justice League and I guess in the mythical Snyder cut, however you want to look at it, basically all the deleted Aquaman scenes we didn't get. What Jason Momoa prepared for in that movie was kind of the Aquaman who had lost his father and he was kind of in mourning and he had some issues with kind of his mother. Again, very different than what we get here, but still in the vein of a guy who did the research and knew what this character would be going through if he were kind of going through a different end of the spectrum on how you perceive kind of loss and being alone and that sort of stuff. But by the same token, even that alone, before things kind of altered, and again, I think for the better. By the way, I like how it ended up turning out. I'm saying either or. I like the Momoa really committed to the characters. That always filled me with confidence. That I remember in Justice League, the 2 weak links were Cyborg and Aquaman, but Aquaman again showed a lot more promise. The Cyborg was just there along for the ride. He contributed nothing to that movie, just except he's walking plot device. That's about it. He's the droppings of vision essentially. That's what he is. That's what Cyborg is.
But, God.
Anyway, so that's the thing. So I love that. I came into this movie just very optimistic. I came to the movie very optimistic. I had no major expectations. Again, I was just always the potential that I was just hoping, fingers crossed, that Aquaman would live up to his full potential, even in the DCEU, because there's always been a lot of disparaging things about his Aquaman as a character in general. So everyone has always turned up their nose like, oh, great, an Aquaman movie. And of course, then now in the DCU where everyone's casting Doom instantly. And again, a lot of that's founded. I won't fault them entirely for that. But the fact of the matter is there was a big cloud hanging over this movie in various capacities. But when I was watching the movie in the end, my thesis overall is that this movie is Aquaman as a King Arthur story that was kind of a no-brainer that worked, and I don't think it gets put together that often. Arthur Curry again, he's named after kind of obviously King Arthur, but we don't do that often with Aquaman. A lot of times Aquaman is just kind of we just differentiate him from the Submariner in the comics, or just Aquaman as a character. He's the guy who talks to fish. That's all he is. But in recent years, we've kind of challenged that. We've seen there's more layers to this guy, and in some eras of Aquaman, he's definitely more king. It's basically Game of Thrones underwater a lot of the times. There's various degrees of Aquaman. So this really boils it down to the essential kind of the inception of the idea. If Atlantis is a kingdom, therefore Aquaman would be a king, but how does he become king? And again, especially if he's born in the surface world, it kind of leads him through a journey, through a King Arthur's tale of the sea, if you will, which I found very interesting. I found really refreshing and kind of classic in a way, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Overall, the movie, to me, the movie's a fun celebration of Aquaman and the hard sell of the history of that character, and all the ridiculousness of the things we always turn our noses up at with Aquaman for decades. And I think it all just kind of said, it's like James Wan's coming into this movie, like kind of like a Charlie Brown mentality around the holidays. You know what? I'm going to make a good Aquaman movie no matter what anybody says. I'm going to take this Aquaman character, I'm going to take him home, and I'm going to decorate him up, and I'm going to, I'm going to sell everybody on him. I'm going to make him cool again. So I think it all came together in a refreshingly solid and faithful film. Emphasis on faithful. So whether the film's the best superhero movie ever, which again it's not, but the point is it's not destined to be the best movie ever. But to this character, this is the best it's as faithful as you're going to get with Aquaman, really. And I think it's true to it's not just trying to sell a DC EU Aquaman. It's working with that from the get go. But I think it's a tribute to the character, and this essentially, on the whole, is what the DC cinematic universe should have been trying for from the beginning. I think Aquaman's kind of the gold standard of what they should. I mean, along with Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman has a lot more kind of attached to it, but Aquaman, very simple, is like if they started with kind of a more obscure character we've never seen in film before, I think Aquaman would have been our guy. But that's the thing. So this film, I felt.
I mean, to Aquaman credit, I think Aquaman is honestly a much better movie than Wonder Woman, just because instead of blowing it in its third act, I think Aquaman's third act is probably the best part of the whole movie. So, and you know me, Dragon, an ending will really make or break a movie for me. So I don't know. That's one of the things I'll give Aquaman, is I feel like Aquaman did the big CGI blowout battle right.
Yes, and also before we get any further, I just want to welcome Ralph Gonzalez in the comments section here. Nice. He echoes that DC really stepped up their game in Aquaman, and yeah, very classically, Aquaman's been seen as a joke hero, and he's also asking if we've done a stream on the Spider-Verse movie, and yes, we have, Ralph Gonzalez. Yes, we have. After this, or I mean, if you're really impatient, I guess go to this, and then we'll come back to this later. If you want to join us live, you're more than welcome to. But yes, we did a whole big Spider-Verse dissection. It was huge, man, huge. Anyway, getting back,
it was probably about like 45 minutes longer than the actual movie.
True. We could have gone longer. We could have, believe me, it's a great old film. But anyway, so back to Aquaman here. So yeah, that's my opening statement. Again, by the DCU standards, I think it's really good, and just as a movie itself, I think it's really solid and really faithful to the character. So I got what I wanted with the movie, essentially. So that's Aquaman.
Right. So hit us with the background, Dragon.
All right, here's the background. So again, just not a lot here. Just classically, again, Aquaman was always kind of a running gag in regards to Aquaman getting a movie. Like, I don't know if you remember this. I remember Kevin Smith telling this story, so I always thought this was hilarious and I wanted to bring it up here. That if I don't watch the show Entourage, but Kevin Smith, he had been a big fan of Entourage, and they referenced him twice.
Yeah, I had a feeling this was brought up. I do remember this.
The gag is in Entourage, and Entourage does a lot of kind of like what ifs for film, like a lot of like fake movies that are being made within the universe of Entourage. That, of course, like just so they can have like a plot for the season or for a gag or something. And Kevin Smith been brought up a couple times in kind of passing. They usually kind of make fun of him, but he loves it. He just loves it. They said my name. It's an adorable little story. But the important thing is, like, the gag was Aquaman was a superhero movie that had been kind of a running gag in Entourage. Like I believe it was that James Cameron worked on the first Aquaman, and then Kevin Smith was he was either writing or directing the second Aquaman. They were like, I thought it was Kevin, someone else, like, Kevin, that guy? He says, no, Kevin Smith. Oh, we're effed. We're like, oh boy, we're screwed. But yeah, so the point is, there's always been like kind of a famous, like, oh, Aquaman's always the hard sell of a movie. And in reality, it's really been in the works. I mean, I'm sure there's been a little bit of touch and go over the years, aside from like the Entourage gag. Over the years, like in maybe the 2000s, you've had a little bit of talks about an Aquaman movie. Nothing really serious until Man of Steel. So basically, when the DCU was getting up off the ground, that's when they do Man of Steel. Man of Steel, again, it was good. When it came out, it was impressing people, and it was starting to divide opinions. But even before that, it was coming back, and again, it was like all about the potential of DC's answer to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's really what Man of Steel was kind of getting at. And so Man of Steel comes out, and after that, they're kind of thinking what their next step is. Of course, in the grand scheme, they're really rushing into things, and that's essentially where things start to get a little muddy here. So it's been in the works since Man of Steel in 2013, since after Man of Steel in 2013. Then they're in a big rush to get the Batman v Superman, and in doing that, they want to kind of present the characters who are going to be in Justice League and just kind of cut out the middleman of like a number of films and just kind of get to the Avengers of it all as fast as they could. So they do Batman v Superman, have a little Aquaman cameo, and then formally introduce him in Justice League. So again, I'm not 100% on this here. Where again, there's always a question of how much input Snyder had. Like, did Snyder come up with the visual of Aquaman? Like, did he come up with kind of the Momoa looking Aquaman?
Mhm.
It's always unclear because a lot of people, even with Suicide Squad, some people speculate. People have joked and some people speculate, oh, maybe the Jared Leto Joker designs Snyder. And of course, there's no proof of that. But it's like there's a question of how much creative control Snyder had on a lot of these other movies in the DCU because he was kind of their headliner for a lot of it. But so the point is, unbeknownst if he crafted Aquaman or not, they rolled with it from that point forward, whoever came up with the design. Because it wasn't James Wan from the very beginning. I know that much. And that again, that Aquaman design, whether you love it or not, is modeled somewhat after the comics. A very popular run of Aquaman in the comics was the Peter David run. Now, for anyone who's unfamiliar with that, Peter David, really good comics writer, but for anyone who's watched the Justice League animated show, that Aquaman's the Peter David Aquaman, like the hook-handed, long-haired, shirtless Aquaman that pretty much Momoa was based on, minus the hook for a hand. That's the Peter David Aquaman. So that's pretty much what they were kind of aiming for visually with Aquaman, kind of their take on it. Again, undersea Game of Thrones, pretty much. So 2015 rolls around. James Wan gets involved. He really took his time getting the script right, and again, it was a smart move on his part to get the right people involved. Jeff Johns, who just for anyone who's unfamiliar, because this is important. Jeff Johns, he had a great influence. He had a great influence on the New 52. He's basically kind of spearheaded the New 52 in many respects, and he had a very popular Aquaman story. Now, again, for anyone who's read the New 52, some people might say it's a bit overblown. Oh, man, everybody loves that Aquaman story too much. But look at what it did for the character, man. Everybody had a newfound respect for Aquaman after Jeff Johns kind of did his magic. Jeff Johns did his magic for a lot of characters like Shazam, like we're going to see this year. And a few other characters, like he basically kind of revamped them and kind of made them kind of cool again. That's what Jeff Johns did for Aquaman. Aquaman could walk the surface in the orange shirt and everything. He brought back the orange shirt and the green and everything. He would walk the land, and like he'd walk into a seafood restaurant, everybody give him funny looks, and they say, "Why are you eating fish? You talk to fish." And he says, "Well, we have cows on the surface here. I mean, it's basically this Aquaman getting the semantical conversations with people on the land. It's really hilarious." And it gets in the whole lighthouse keeper father and everything. Anyway, so the point is Jeff Johns was involved in the writing, hence the very faithfulness to the Aquaman of it all. There are a lot of effects. There's a lot of effects work to get Atlantis right, as you see here. A lot of basically to do the undersea effect, they CG'd a lot of people's hair to make it look like they're underwater. They're very proud of that effect. It's really pricey, as you'd imagine. And they really sold the movie on the Comic-Con trailer, and a lot of Jason Momoa love. That's really what they kind of sold the movie on as a whole. They really, and oh my God, Black Manta. That's really what carried this movie a lot and got people into the theater. I'd imagine.
One of the things about the marketing campaign that I remember, Dragon, is that correct me if I'm wrong, the trailer wasn't the trailer like something like 5 minutes long or something like that?
That's the thing, yeah. I mean, there was this. I don't know if it was the second trailer or if it was whatever. Comic-Con had like a big 5-minute trailer. And that's the one you're thinking of. And I don't know if that was first or if that was.
That's the one that I remember. And I remember when that came out, I was just like, I was kind of, I was sort of like halfway between Monkey and you, where it's like Monkey avoids trailers at all costs. As for me, I'm kind of the point where it's like I'll see a teaser trailer. At the most, I'll see a full trailer, but after the full trailer, like after a second full trailer, I'm kind of done. And to me, like I just distinctly remember like 5 minutes. Like I remember the hype around the trailer, but I was just like, I don't want to see 5 minutes of the movie. It's like I'd rather go in more fresh. So I don't know. That's the thing that I remembered the most about the Aquaman marketing was the fact that like that 5-minute trailer, it seemed like, I do remember it getting people hyped, but it seemed like it was a little bit overblown for me personally, because I like to save as much footage as possible for the actual movie.
True. And I guess the last thing to note would be that on the whole, there was a lot of hope. Again, they can't officially say this, but there's a big sense that the DC Warners and the DCEU as a whole, they're really hopeful that Aquaman would deliver in a sensitive time for the DCEU when they're kind of contemplating the whole how much of a reset are we going for here? Basically, this is coming out when the DCU's essentially in crisis after Justice League. Their big one really didn't perform financially the way they wanted it to, and they're really contemplating going full, just release disconnected films again. Let's just take it one film at a time. And again, the only thing they had going for them was Wonder Woman, and now it seems to be Aquaman. So again, there was a lot of pressure on Aquaman to deliver, and there was kind of I got a sense there was like an unknown variable, like this thing could sink or could succeed, and basically we're gonna we're going to map out how we're going to go forward based on how Aquaman performs. We'll touch on that a little later on. That's essentially what I believe the mentality was when the movie was coming out of Warner's, I think. All right.
All right, really quick, Dragon, hit us with the plot.
Okay, here's the plot. So years ago, Queen Atlanta of Atlantis, she fled an arranged marriage and had an affair with a humble lighthouse keeper by the name of Tom Curry, which leads to a son they named Arthur, half human, half Atlantean. Atlanta is forced to return and face judgment in Atlantis for this kind of treasonous act, I guess. Arthur Curry grows up with Atlantean abilities, and he's trained by a confidant of the Queen by the name of Volko. Ipso facto, becoming Aquaman years later. He's all trained and everything. Of course, he has basically Atlantean powers, Aquaman. So after creating an arch foe in Black Manta, Mira, one of the princesses from one of the kingdoms in Atlantis, Mira recruits Arthur in a plan to stop his evil brother Orm from starting a war between Atlantis and the surface world by retreat. Basically, Mira's plan is to retrieve the king's trident, and importantly, retrieve the trident, then challenge Orm for the throne. The plan goes awry. Arthur and Mira, they go on a quest to find the trident, in which they face Black Manta, they face the dreaded Trench, and even a Leviathan, voiced by Julie Andrews. No joke. Which ultimately leads to Arthur becoming king.
You could do a giant sea monster in this movie, but you couldn't have her do the last song in Mary Poppins Returns.
I gotta tell you,
had to get Angela Lansbury.
I gotta tell you, when I heard that, it brought a smile to my face, thinking, "Oh, she's not the new Mary Poppins, but it's gonna get under Tiki's skin." That's kind of funny.
No, she had a perfectly good reason for not wanting to be in Mary Poppins. She didn't want to overshadow Emily Blunt, so I respect that.
So Arthur becomes king. How apropos, King Arthur, get it? He defeats his brother and even reunites his mom and dad, and it all ends all nice and happy. Ain't that cute? And that's the movie.
All right, so let's kind of take the arcs character by character, starting with Arthur. So Dragon, I got to admit, the first scene with him as a little kid with the aquarium that we saw in the trailers, like even the way it's presented in the movie. I know you're not a Potter guy, Dragon, but this is straight out of Sorcerer's Stone. It's very much the bit where Harry talks to the snake behind the glass in the first Harry Potter movie. And don't get me wrong, it's cool. It's just like it almost feels like kind of a throwback to that sort of it almost feels like an homage more than a ripoff. Like I like it though. I like how that's what gets us to our title sequence. It's a really cool visual of all the sharks and everything gathering around Arthur in the aquarium, and then we get the Aquaman title. It's a good touch. Anyways, Dragon, let me tell you what I like the most about Aquaman, and I like that in this one he's still a bro, but he's more, instead of just being like a big kind of like larger than life, bro chacho, he's more just kind of like a down to earth sort of like. He's like the kind of guy that you want to go have a beer with. You know what I mean? He's not like he's not trying to be the most boisterous guy in the world. He's just kind of like just a fun sort of blue collar personality.
Yeah, that's the thing. I love that about him too. I love that they made him. He's less broy and he's more kind of a go with the flow everyman. That's the local celebrity. He's like the town hero. I like that about him. That's what I really loved about the direction of Aquaman in this movie. He's he's a reluctant King Arthur type who blames Atlantis. He had a really great motivation. I love that in the beginning, and the reason he was so reluctant to go back to Atlantis, even in Justice League, and the whole thing here is that he blames Atlantis for taking away his mother, and he blames his existence for the reason he doesn't have a mother. I mean, that's a great, profound thing to give kind of the ultimate chip on Aquaman show. That's a really great character motivation, and again, a reason why he would be a reluctant king and just reluctant at the whole Atlantean side of himself. That's really good character building. I love that. Yeah, I like that. We see with
I love I love all the stuff with his father that we'll get to really briefly. There's a particular scene in the town that I love that we'll talk about when we talk about the favorite scenes. I just all the stuff in the first act with him, Dragon. I got to admit, as much as I like the third act, I think Act One is my favorite act in the movie. I just all the down to earth stuff. Like I could watch a whole movie about just Arthur just interacting with the townspeople and taking selfies with bikers and that kind of stuff. I really could just watch it'd be in the same vein as if they made a full movie out of the sketches with Thor and his roommate. You know what I mean?
Well, you see, Tiki, that stuff, that first act with Aquaman is essentially what I want Wonder Woman 2 to be. That's what I really want to see with Wonder Woman 2 when that comes out.
Mm-hmm.
This is stuff I live for with those characters, just seeing kind of how they interact and kind of that city or that society, just seeing how they kind of interact with the everyman. So, so yeah, I like that he's. I think you'll notice that he's very instinct driven. He has a lot of choices that are kind of driven by a natural instinct based on that humble upbringing, by being the son of a lighthouse keeper. And I like that again he is as much human as he is Atlantean. He's basically like a human guy who's just as durable. He's durable because he's Atlantean. He has enhanced strength. Again, the idea that on land, the idea that on land he's kind of a Superman thanks to his Atlantean abilities.
Yeah, I was about to say, is it weird that he's more like I feel like he feels more like Superman than Henry Cavill has in any of the movies, including Justice League?
Well, I don't know. Just like kind of, again, when Cavill, again, barring a CGI kind of half of his face.
I swear to God, that mustache, man. It's like I want to praise the hell out of Cavill in Justice League, but then I think of the mustache, and I'm like, oh God, it makes it all so much more complicated.
Yeah. Yeah, Mission Impossible. He didn't need that mustache in Mission Impossible. He could have given him a fake mustache. I don't get why. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's a whole different conversation. I think the mustache made that character.
Well, sure. I'm saying they could have given him a fake one or CG a mustache on. I don't know.
Yeah, but if you CG the mustache, then you run into the same thing. It's like, hey, that mustache looks CG.
Or Spirit Gum. Spirit Gum works fine.
All right. Let's
anyway, getting back on point here. But yeah, overall, kind of the arc of Aquaman here is he learns to accept the Atlantean side of himself, and he something really cool I love throughout the movies. You have these little bits where he shows respect to people, especially elders, and of course, I love it when Aquaman saves people. He saves people on the sub. He's saving people in Florence, Italy. But I like that while he's kind of fighting, he's in that fight in Italy. I love that he's like apologizing. He's like excusing himself as he's crashing through people's living rooms. That's really nice.
I love when he's saving the people and he's like, hurry up, I'm missing happy hour for this.
Yeah, again, there's a personable, it's just that you nailed on the head. It's that blue collar everyman quality. It's just, he's the town hero. It's just something really, he's the humble town hero. It's just, he's been grounded by his father in a way where he's not looking for praise or anything. He's just doing it because it's the right thing to do and it kind of kills some time between happy hour.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, so Mira, yeah, on a whole, Dragon, I'm not completely in love with her or anything, but I do think she's above average in terms of, just generic love interest in superhero movies go. One moment in particular really sold me on it. Can you guess which moment?
Is it the rose or the Pinocchio moment?
Yes, the rose petals. The rose petals. Oh man, Dragon, I like that. I don't know. That's the thing. Like this movie, it's like as much as I can nitpick it and say it's like, oh, it's it doesn't live up to. It's not a sophisticated movie. It's as much as I can be a jackass about it. Like it's got moments like the roses that just make you kind of go like, it's like that's just nice.
Yeah. But yeah, Mira, warrior princess. She's just trying to get Arthur in the Atlantean mindset. It's kind of what she's always been trying to do. She's it's basically she's on a necessary.
Randy, can you remind me how she fits into Justice League? Like, is that just retconned at this point?
Well, I was gonna say,
like, it's like I'm pulling up a timeline of it, like Kronk in the Emperor's New Groove, and I'm like, by all accounts, it makes no sense.
Well, I was I was going to save that for later, but if you really want to get into it now, well, the thing is, there's nothing saying they didn't have the interaction in Justice League. 'Cause she does call back Steppenwolf, which implies that they did have an interaction. He turned her down. Well, again, she had that they didn't go to Atlantis. They went to a place close by Atlantis that one time. That's where
Yeah,
things
it
get
was
like,
weird.
yeah, that's the weird thing. Again, like, did he go to Atlantis or did he not go to Atlantis? Because seems like the first time he's ever gone to Atlantis. That's the weird. That's where things get tricky. But they have interacted before. That's at least as much as it went. But again, we'll get into the retconny stuff in pros and cons. Just wait on that.
Okay.
Anyway, so Mira though, but as a character, she's kind of on a quest of necessity, and on that kind of a necessary quest, she develops a genuine friendship and I believable feelings for Aquaman. I mean, I believe that I believe the feelings that she's going to develop. And they're going to have the cute bits like the rose scene in Pinocchio, and they're having they're going to Florence, Italy. It's a really beautiful looking place. It's again, you kind of buy it, and I sold me on it. What do you think? You gonna get any chemistry from it?
Yeah, I was definitely sold on it. Like, it's not a complicated romance by any means, but sometimes like, to me, it almost kind of reminds me of like the type of romance that you used to see in films where it's like you don't necessarily need a ton of screen time for it. It just kind of develops naturally over the course of the movie, almost without really calling attention to it.
Yeah. I mean, I like that she's charmed by the surface world. She's very diametrically opposed to the surface world, again, kind of per the Atlantean beliefs, and she's always just kind of looking down at it because, like, she can't wrap her mind around, like, why on earth would Arthur Curry, he could return home, and I live in Atlantis, man. Atlantis rocks. Yet, why is he attached to the surface world, a place that kind of ruins our place? Again, we have 75% of the 70 to 75% of the globe, and he's that little 25%. Like, why is he so attached up there? And she kind of sees the charm of it. She sees kind of like it's nice up here, and kind of Arthur serving as her guide. You buy it. And of course, she handles herself very well. She's she's a really good fighter. And of course, she has the hydrokinesis powers. That's really cool. I mean, it basically water bends.
And I've got to spotlight the kiss dragon. My God, that kiss in the third act is fucking amazing.
Yes, it is. It reminds me of a Darwin Cook panel from with Green Lantern in the New Frontier book. It's really great. Basically, it's like the hero kissing the girl with some really amazing happening in the background. It's a really good shot.
It kind of feels like something out of rock. Like it's got that '80s heavy metal album cover aesthetic to it.
It does. Yeah, you're right about that. Also, I'm reading into this, but I like that. I kind of like this. I like that Mira. She has she was in an arranged marriage herself. To Orm. She was in an arranged marriage to Orm, again to kind of bridge the two kingdoms in Atlantis. And I like that there's somewhat of a parallel to Arthur's mom, which, I mean, there might be a bit of a Freudian connect there. I don't know if that was kind of interesting.
Oh,
it was kind of interesting. Anyway, so speaking of kind of the surface world and everything, let's talk about good old Tom Curry.
Tom, keeper of Lighthouse.
Yeah, so interestingly, I'm going to butcher his name here. Tamora Morrison, this actor, many people may recognize him as Jango Fett. For anyone who remembers the prequels, Boba Fett's.
Dragon, I swear to God, it was driving me crazy. I was just like, I know I've seen this guy before. But I couldn't place it.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. When I was watching it, I was like, "Is that guy? Is that?" I knew who I thought it was. I thought I was like, "Yeah, that's Morrison. That's Boba Fett's dad. That's Jango Fett, right?" And then of course at the end, I want to make sure it's like, no, I'm just projecting. I'm stupid. I'm just thinking that it has to be that guy because that guy is also, he's also Hawaiian, I believe. Potentially, I think Samoan specific because Momoa is Samoan, I believe. Anyway, the point is, so I'm thinking, okay, I'm just lumping in all. I'm getting that wrong, and of course at the end it's like, oh, it was that guy. What do you know?
It kind of reminds me of the doppelganger Tom Holland from Bad Times at the El Royale.
Yeah, that guy. Anyway, But yeah, so Tom Curry. And here's the thing. So Tom Curry was a big change because again, in this again, there's no harm, no foul because they never nailed it down. But again, Justice League, Zack Snyder was thinking that there was going to be the whole Aquaman's, and sometimes in the comics, Aquaman's father had passed away, and Aquaman was kind of dealing with the loss of that, and that's what I was expecting going into this movie. I was expecting like Aquaman to be bummed out because his father had passed, but no, I was pleasantly surprised to see his father still alive.
Man, I gotta say, this guy is one of my favorite parts of the whole movie, and he's one of the reasons why I like Act One so much.
It was a really good choice to keep him alive, or at least definitely feature him as much as they did. He didn't overstay his welcome, but he was there and he had like a great amount of character and kind of warmth to him. And you have to sell the surface world with Tom Curry, otherwise you have no movie, you have no birth of Aquaman, you have no anything if you don't kind of sell the charm of just the one nice guy, a guy who runs a lighthouse, kind of falling in, having an affair with an Atlantean queen. As insane as that sounds, you need your movie to be sold on that premise, and you need to sell it, man.
No, I mean, here's the thing: it works, man. Like the opening 5 minutes or so totally feels like a standalone, like short, like short film in a way.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I love that the DCU as I'm just gonna this kind of occurred to me. It's kind of funny. A lot of people have said Shazam will be big and big meets Superman, and if it's kind of funny, the beginning of this movie is kind of Splash meets Aquaman with how his parents meet each other. I love that the DCU's kind of new strategy, and the winning strategy it would seem. Again, hope fingers crossed for Shazam would be that let's just kind of mix superheroes with Tom Hanks movies. Let's just do that. I'm down for that formula. I'm down for it. And maybe Wonder Woman will be Wonder Woman 2 will be.
Oh, Dragon! We need a fucking Green Arrow movie with that's a mix of Castaway.
Yeah. Green Arrow and Castaway, and for my benefit, for me, that was this. Wonder Woman 2 meets the Terminal because there's that scene in the mall.
Oh God. I don't think anyone wants a fucking DC movie to be like The Terminal, man. All right, I think you got to give that one up.
I mean, come on, it can't be any worse than some.
All right, I'll humor you. I'll humor you. All right, the scene in the mall. What happens in the mall?
I'm sorry, what?
What about the mall? You said something about the scene in the mall.
Yeah, the scene in the mall in Wonder Woman 2, like the only scene we've ever seen a glimpse of. She has this really awesome fight scene in the mall. There's a big mall aspect with the '80s, and I imagine kind of a Richter Dvorsky kind of going around the airport sort of thing.
So, are you saying you want all of Wonder Woman 2 to take place in a mall? Because
no,
I
not
gotta
all
say,
of
I kind
it.
of love that.
I'm down for that. I don't think it's going to happen that way, but I'm saying I think a portion of at least the most spectacular portion of the movie is going to take place in a mall. I'm pretty sure. Again, like we were kind of pulling aspects, if not, again, like this, the opening of this movie is Splash in a good way. I'm saying like the middle of Wonder Woman 2, or at least the end of an act might be the mall. Okay, if it's not Tom Hanks,
this movie is like. Well, I'm sorry. We'll get to it with pros and cons. Go ahead.
Imagine this, like I think Wonder Woman 2 get better than if it's not Tom Hanks, it will be Wonder Woman 2 meets Mallrats in an awesome way. That'd be kind of cool. Okay, let's get back on point here. So let's see, Tom Curry. So again, it's she the point is that there was a positive relationship between the surface world and the Atlantean world, and that's kind of what we have through Tom Curry. And I love that he's a guy who's still in love, and he misses his wife, and he's he's just this hard drinking nice guy about town who's proud of his son, and it's just his son's the local hero. It's like his son's like the local football player, and he's so proud of him. But importantly, he's a good guy. He's not like a guy just like you should do all. He's not like a big blustering type. He's a nice softy,
Would you say he's proud of his boy?
I would say he's proud of his boy.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah, let's talk about Queen Atlanta.
Okay. Yeah, Nicole Kidman, man, what a year she's been on.
Yeah, I really liked Nicole Kidman in this. Didn't have a lot of scenes, obviously, but I thought she was good. Definitely get for what happens later on in the movie. I definitely felt kind of a Hiccup's mom vibe from How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, most definitely. Especially, like the scene where she's defending herself against the Atlantean guards that come for her. It's I really like that design of the Atlantean stormtroopers, by the way. That's what I'm just gonna call them. They're basically Atlantean stormtroopers. It's kind of like this great like Star Wars meets Pirates of the Caribbean kind of aesthetic.
Sure. But yeah, she's but yeah, with the Atlantean guards, I guess I love the world building of like how their helmets work. I love they have like kind of a
Yeah, that's what I'm
heavy.
saying. That to me is like the Star Wars of it all, kind of like the world building, like having the technology kind of fit into the character itself in a way.
Yeah, I remember I wanted initially I wanted Vera Farmiga to play Atlanta when they were doing the movie. I was really hoping she was going to be Aquaman's mother, but that didn't end up happening. It was James Wan working with
Vera
Patrick
Farmiga
Wilson.
can only be in one giant Warner Brothers franchise at a time, Dragon.
That's true. That's true. It's a crying shame, but we all have everyone has their cross to bear, I suppose.
But she's gonna be the one to tame Godzilla.
Not true, but for Vera Farmiga, that's small potatoes. Like, oh, she can do that any day of the week. I mean, come on. Anyway, but yes, I like the reason I bring Vera Farmiga is I do like Nicole Kidman. She has some nice cutesy gags here where she's the curious. When she wakes up, she has the curiosity of the surface world. She impales the TV with the trident. She has like a lot of neat things
The
like that.
goldfish.
Yeah, beats the kind of pulls a Michelle Pfeiffer, eats the goldfish. But yeah, I like that. There's definitely a lack of closure for Arthur. And that he lost his mother, and of course he was always like the promise of seeing his mother, and she was just for all intents and purposes gone. But I got to tell you, they pulled the old mom still alive, and it was a beautiful moment. I thought
Yeah.
it was kind of nice to see him reunited and everything. All was good there, and yeah. All right.
Right. So Willem Dafoe's in this movie.
Yeah. Defoe's. I expect that. Here's the. I think Defoe delivered, but I was kind of expecting a smidge more of him. I was, but I remember he was supposed to be in Justice League, but they cut him out again of like the many things they cut out of Justice League. But you know what? Just Defoe was kind of somewhat of a generic mentor figure, but he kind of stood his ground a little later on in the movie. Kind of like, yeah, good old Defoe there. Kind of
Well, I like how he's not only the mentor figure, but he's also kind of like the guy who's politically caught in the middle. I find those characters kind of intriguing. It's like to me, he's almost the most Game of Thrones-esque character in the whole film.
Yeah, I think again, I'm not super into the Aquaman lore, so I could be wrong about this, but I know Volko is a confidant of Aquaman. I think he might have been an Atlantean scientist in the comics, and they kind of changed him to more of an advisor. Which kind of would play well here. I like that he's the advisor who's still loyal to the Queen, but he's also loyal to the throne. So basically, he's loyal to the Queen and Arthur versus Orm at the end of the day. And he taught him everything he knows. He's very much kind of in that kind of an Alfred Lucius Fox vein. That's kind of where Volko is.
Uh,
He helps him.
Fortunately, as much as I like the training scenes, there is some distracting like de-aging CGI going on.
Well, I mean, there's so much CGI with the Atlanteans. Didn't really pay mind to it, but you're not wrong.
All right.
But he definitely helps save the day with the Trident lesson. That's cool. It definitely helps him out there, and I like I love how that paid off. And I think Defoe brought a warmth and a loyalty to the role, and I love the. There's definitely a sadness there, kind of you see the sadness there about how he knows he's leading Arthur on about his mother. Like, your mother's most likely dead, but I need to get you back to Atlantis to kind of fulfill her role. And he kind of knows that he's letting the kid on. It's interesting. It's interesting. But I do love that after that big kind of moment in the past, I love that years later, Aquaman at first he walks up to Vulcan and says, it's that old crustacean you. It's just they've made peace. I love they made peace. Aquaman's not a guy who really holds a lot of grudges, so with the exception of the broad one to Atlantis. That really doesn't hold personal grudges. He holds just grand sweeping grudges, because I think he respects that Volko owned up to his actions very, very, very directly. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, I could see Volko being a character that either gets way more development in the sequel or is killed off immediately in the sequel.
I'm pulling for development. I'm pulling. Like, Aquaman needs like a court of like
But
advisors
you
and
know
stuff.
that he'd be a prime candidate to fill the Uncle Ben role. Because that's the thing, Dragon. This movie, it kind of subverts the Uncle Ben archetype for a superhero origin story. You gotta kind of respect it for that. It's like the mother gets taken away, but we don't even see the mother get taken away in a violent way, so
True. All right, so let's see. Moving on, we have King Nerys. King Nerys, if I'm pronouncing that right. King Nerys is portrayed by Dolph Lundgren.
yeah, this guy's having kind of a weird comeback year, right?
Yeah, I gotta tell you, Dolph Lundgren. I remember. Here's the thing. It's been so long again. I've been steering away from as much Aquaman stuff as I could. Like when that trailer played, I thought I watched it once, and I was hoping to forget as much as I could about it. So
Uh-huh.
I heard that. I think I heard once around that time Dolph Lundgren was in the movie. Completely forgot about it when I saw this scene. It's like, oh my god, Dolph Lundgren's in this movie. After I've seen him in Creed 2, it's like, oh wow, yeah. Dolph Lundgren, he wasn't bad in the movie. It was a small role, and then the thing I liked about it is that he was sort of he was kind of he was a more redemptive. He showed the more redemptive side of Atlantis, where he cares about his daughter and his kingdom. And again, the guy he wasn't a bad guy. He was just making practical choices, and he was the one who he was very rational, and he just wanted. He felt very Conan-esque. It was Dolph Lundgren kind of playing a Conan-esque king. He was like all about kind of like the ways of Atlantis, and but also just kind of not courting war and everything. It was a neat small role.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. He's fine. I mean, it's just nice to see him. You know what I mean? It's one of those just kind of celebrity cameos, just for the sake of like, yeah, why not?
Lundgren with a red beard and kind of a vaguely Conan performance. That's kind of what it's pretty much.
All right.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, so Orm.
Yeah, Orm, Ocean Master. Yeah.
All
So,
right. Here's the deal, Dragon. I love me some Patrick Wilson. I love me some Patrick Wilson James Wan collaborations. I guarantee you I've seen more of them than you have.
well, yeah.
But I don't know. To me, there was something missing from Ocean Master. I didn't really I didn't really feel like, to me, the character wise, it was like a bizarre kind of middle ground between a Loki and a Killmonger. Even though, interestingly enough, Dragon, I'm going to go off on a side tangent here really quick. I feel like the interesting thing about Orm's storyline is that it almost makes Arthur. I'm not saying they did this intentionally or anything, of course, but the storyline almost paints Arthur as sort of like the Killmonger figure in the story.
You're not wrong.
And I don't know, I think that element of it is interesting, but I don't know, man. I'm just thinking, like, I've seen this movie twice, and I want to like Patrick Wilson a lot more than I do. To me, he's probably the biggest disappointment. I can't even put my figure. I can't put my finger on what he's doing wrong either. I really think it's more the acting than the writing than anything else. I just, to me, he's like kind of an amalgamation of different villain motivations that I've seen done better in other movies.
Well, here's the thing, Tiki. I mean, again, again, I'm not an Aquaman aficionado and all the ins and outs, but I gotta tell you, every time I've seen Orm, this is consistent with what I've seen. That's this character. I thought he was pretty on the money. He's like Orm is kind of DC's kind of Loki equivalent. The idea is that like Aquaman always tries to redeem his brother who turned on him, who basically tried to overthrow the kingdom time and time again. And he's basically we have both of Aquaman's arch enemies are in this movie, and Orm is definitely the king's brother, and we kind of see the origin of that, and we kind of play it up where Orm was manning the throne before Aquaman kind of dethroned him, therefore fueling that rivalry for years to come, I guess. What I liked about Patrick Wilson is that
I mean, I get that. I feel like it has the unfortunate kind of it's almost kind of like the unfortunate unintentional John Carter effect, where it's just like we've seen the evil brother done so well in Thor that it's almost it almost seems like old hat at this point, and it's unfortunate because I'm sure if you read the comic books, it's you know, it's very well told. It differentiates itself from Loki quite well, but I don't know, man. It's like, to me, it's like adaptation wise, I'm sure it's probably on the money. I will say this. I mean, I do very much think that the more interesting villain of this movie is the one that got less screen time. I mean, I really think that's the case.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I got what's been left out here. I think I got what the X factors you're looking for here. I think it's that Orm is Orm's Orm is basically, here's the thing. The one thing that he has over Loki is that Orm was actually seems to have been like a sturdy king. Like he was a guy who had actual leadership chops, and he was the one who's like destined for the throne. Again, he was the born of Atlantean blood and everything, all that stuff. But here's where things went wrong with Orm. I think is that maybe if they had made him more, if you sympathized more with his leadership, like if he actually sounded like there was more of a motivation for why he was targeting the surface world. Because here's what we had. Basically, if there was an element of Orm, basically, if we had the Killmonger element added to Orm, where Killmonger is a character, in Black Panther who was who was, you felt the guy was not in the wrong for what he was doing. He went too far, but he was not in the wrong about what he was saying, and that's the thing we're lacking from Orm. You see what I'm getting at here? I think Orm was just blindly going after the surface world. He was courting war because just, it's like they had it coming for a while now, but you didn't quite feel like he was all the way through a good king. You follow me?
Yeah, I do follow you, and I also feel like the whole just the whole generic threat of we're declaring war on the surface wasn't exactly the most original lot in the world, honestly.
But again, I have to. That's on the money though. That's Orm's shtick. That's what he does. But I mean, look, to talk about the Patrick Wilson of it all, though. Patrick Wilson, what I do like about what he does, the one thing I think he really brought to Orm that I was impressed by, and it's not a lot, but it's what he brought to it with what he did, though, is that he added a little bit more personality to kind of the blustering character that is Orm. Like, and Orm's kind of like, he was like one of the original kind of like, I don't know if Orm predates, here's the thing, I think Orm technically predates Loki even. That's the funny thing. I'm pretty sure, I don't know 100%, but regardless. The idea is like Orm's classic. He's just kind of a blustering character, like, we're going to target the surface world. And he's all about like the king who's jealous of his brother. But what Wilson kind of added was there was a softness of like, I don't like you, but I don't want to have to kill my brother. He gave him that one chance out. And that was the thing. He added like a sliver of humanity to the guy there, where again it's like he's just. He hates what this guy represents the same way Arthur hates what he represents to himself. So Orm, but basically they're kind of bonding over the mutual hate of Aquaman's birth. But again, he doesn't hate the guy personally. He doesn't want to kill him personally. That's the fascinating thing. I think Patrick Wilson kind of infused into the role that I haven't really seen all the time with Orm. So I thought that was. Thought that was interesting. Again, I think enough of what's right with that character is there. Where again, the actions are to benefit Atlantis and to get revenge on the surface world for all the pollution, all the stuff they've done carelessly over the years, and it's just. He wants to be Ocean Master, which of course Ocean Master is basically kind of added the spoke of the wheel here. Where Ocean Master, the classic name of Orm in the comic, like Orm's his birth name, Ocean Master is what his villain name is. So the Ocean Master in this case is king. That means you're a master of all the oceans. Basically, the proper term for being the guy, basically being the guy who has the powers of the king, basically the end all be all, that guy. And again, he wants to be that, because it's his birthright as a king, but he hasn't quite earned that. He hasn't lived up to it because he's not doing things that are truly in Atlantis' best. They're truly best for Atlantis. So, in the end, he's living in disgrace for his failure because he wanted to die a warrior's death. He wanted to he doesn't want to live in failure. He just wants to die, and of course he's going to live with this and live with the fact that he disappointed his mother, and he condemned his mother to death, and she comes back and now he has to live with the shame of all it. So I really like where we end up with him. I like that we didn't kill him. Again, that's classically how it goes, and that's kind of neat. But importantly, you get a sense with Orm that he's not beyond hope or redemption because the guy was trying to act as a good king, but he was just really misguided. So again, I don't think they quite hit the bullseye on that, but I like that they were circling it enough. I felt.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So yeah, let's talk about the big head honcho. Let's talk about what everybody's talking about. It's the one everybody loves. Let's talk about Black
Yeah, I mean, it's probably like the best way to put it to me is it's Boba Fett done better,
Well,
where it's like it's Boba Fett actually had like besides being paid and being the best.
hmm. I I don't know about you're not. I don't think you're wrong. Yeah, you're not wrong, but Black Man is just kind of cool on enough. Black Man always has been kind of a very interesting character, very layered character. He's kind of Boba Fett plus. I'll go that far. It's Boba Fett plus, I guess. It's he is. I think he was perfectly executed in this movie. I really do. I feel you have this great legacy component with Black Man. There's always been a legacy component to this character for a lot of reasons. I'm sure a lot of people who, especially if anyone has the DC streaming service, they'll anyone who's watched Young Justice knows there's a really great legacy component to Black Manta off the bat. And then this is stuff I never think they're going to get to in the movies, but there's always, in some way, shape, or form, there's a legacy component. We kind of brought it in a way I've never seen before with Black Manta's father, which I thought was a really great move. And I love how we kind of, again, like it's always a question of the archenemy of Aquaman. You have the brother who's the personal archenemy, and you have Black Manta who's like visually the perfect like Joker like diametric opposite to Aquaman, who he is. That's Black Manta perfectly. And these two guys hate each other. They have a very Batman Joker history with each other. They've done the worst things to each other on a regular basis, and they always have a constant parallel like that. Where Black Manta, as we see here, and again, perfect. I think he has the perfect. I mean, I might be going far with this. I'm trying to think if there's any better comparison. Maybe you could, if you think of anything, let me know. I'm trying to think of I think he might be the most right we've gotten a character in adaptation in the DCEU.
In the DCEU, I'd say definitely.
Because I mean, the only thing they got wrong, I mean, legitimately, the only thing they really kind of changed up is it has a different last name. That's about it. Everything else is again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's like slavish, like beat by beat, but I'm saying it's like as the best you're going to get to a character brought to cinema because he looks just like the comic. And again, there's kind of like he's a pirate. They didn't change that. But he's not like a guy who's like he's somewhat like a pirate. No, he's a legit pirate. And he has kind of that. He's a guy who's always ticked off at the world. Like you tell him how to do his job, he's going to kill you. And he's just, I love that. So the guy tries to tell him like, hey, you don't have to kill anybody here. Don't tell me how to do things. Just stabs him right to the heart. Black Manta, he's just awesome. He's just this mirthless, but he's mirthless yet honor bound and committed. And that's the great thing about Black Manta. Tiki. He's just so committed to whatever he does, and that's the quality there. Where he gets paid for a job that turns personal. He doesn't want money anymore. He wants revenge, and that's Black Manta, buddy boy. That's Black Manta all the way through.
Now, what do you think, Dragon? I'm sure you'll have a good comeback for this, but I don't know, man. I think the movie would have been better if Black Manta was the main villain and we just introduced Orm instead of the other way around.
I think for what they did in the movie, basically, there's a big lesson that Arthur takes away from his encounter with Black Manta, and I feel that lesson. I don't know. I feel him leaving Arthur with that lesson again. It's kind of giving him some kind of like a nugget of king-like wisdom that he's going to take with him. And again, a theme of the movie, especially Black Manta's role in the movie, is actions have consequences. It's a great lesson. That's a lesson that Arthur learns. That again, is a very king-like lesson to learn. That again gets him ready for his battle with Orm. And I feel that the big consequence is going to be the next installment of this whole Black Manta versus Aquaman story. That again, if Black Manta came back after this, it would have been like a whole third act where we would have squeezed in. Okay, so he's fighting Orm and Black Manta simultaneously. We would have squeezed them into the third act, which would have been crazy with what they had already. So I feel we're going to give Black Manta his due. So I feel it was a smart move not to put him in more than he was in there. He just kind of stole the show for a bit. He thought he really delivered. So I don't know. I think it all worked itself out.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough, Dragon. Fair enough. And like I said, I honestly feel like, as someone who's always been like since childhood a little bit perplexed at the popularity of Boba Fett, I'm like, this is a guy that I can get behind. You know, this is a guy who has very limited screen time, but he really makes the most out of the screen time and the set pieces that he does have, and he's got a really thrilling motivation to him.
I really like how we worked. Again, we did a really great villain team up here. The idea is that Black Manta, he was on that sub, the sub that kind of ruined his life, you know, and kind of took his father away from him. He was on that sub because he had a deal with Orm because he wants to frame the surface world so Orm can start a war with the surface world. Because remember, he was stealing that submarine. He did end up still stealing that submarine.
Uh-huh.
So he basically he gets again that whole deal going on there, and of course later on, and Orm gives him his armor that he retrofits into the Black Manta armor. Like they made really great choices with Black Manta all over. Like I love the Black Manta; he's an inventor. I don't know if that's ever been an aspect with that character. I mean, you always kind of assume, well, he had the helmets. I guess he made it, but no, we literally see him tinkering with it and figuring it out. It's great stuff. We fleshed out his character in a really interesting way, and we showed that dedication in a really great scene that we'll talk about momentarily. But it's all great, and he still has an axe to grind and has wounds to heal. Like, again, a classic image of Black Manta. And the reason, I think the ultimate reason I'm really fine with what they did with him and kind of writing him out early in the movie is that a classic image with Black Manta is Black Manta defeated with the cracked helmet. Like, you need to see kind of the humanity. It's the classic image of it's like we see in RoboCop. You always see like the great visual of a guy wearing a helmet who has like you can see the humanity inside the helmet. And that, given how we introduced Black Manta to start being pre-helmet, it's a great kind of reminder of, okay, this guy, and Tiki also, historically, Black Manta had a really great thing in the comics. I don't know if this is the first time this is ever done, but I remember there was a thing where, he was a really great African-American villain as well. I'm not trying just to take it there, but that was a very historic thing of Black Manta, where he was called Black Manta not for his costume, because he was a black man underneath, and that was just, I don't know, it was always kind of an interesting historical thing with the character too. It was a bit of kind of history with that, but beyond that, though, again, it's the humanity of the guy who, beyond the bluster of a supervillain, just in visual alone, he's a guy with a very human motivation of revenge, who again it's kind of been infused by the heroes. All of that's very interesting. He's on a path of escalation and things getting even more and more personal. Let's just say when we get to speculation, Black Manta is, again, he's absolutely the Joker to Aquaman, and this guy takes it to really dark and personal levels in his hatred of Aquaman. That's going to be very, very fascinating. I guess to touch on an element of that setup here, he's found by Dr. Stephen Shin. Dr. Stephen Shin is an Aquaman character. I don't know if he was just for the Jeff Johns stuff, but Aquaman, he had kind of a scientist. He had kind of a scientist buddy, like a marine biologist scientist buddy on the land, who was this guy, who turned on him because he wanted to find Atlantis, and he kind of went a little mad, and he felt remorseful for things that happened here. Here we kind of did a different take on. We had Randall Park in the role. Good old, it's Randall Park, right? The guy from Ant-Man. And the Wasp.
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, I like that this guy, again, just coming up. He's going to help him get to Atlantis. It's going to be really, it's good. All of it looks really cool with that Black Manta. I guess that's the whole thing. Anything you want to add, like about the father or anything?
No, I think you've got that father thing covered. I don't want to step on your toes with your favorite scenes. So.
Sure. Yeah, okay. So yeah, I think it's pretty much it for the characters. Then. So let's get into some.
Okay.
Let's pro-con this thing.
All right. So, Dragon, here's the deal. To me, as much as I do like this movie, it feels like a very derivative movie through and through in a lot of different places. It's it feels like as much it's definitely like got the traditional superhero origin story vibe to it. It's King Arthur, it's Thor, it's Black Panther in some regards, it's Game of Thrones, it's Lord of the Rings, it's National Treasure for a few scenes. And you got some Star Wars in there. And honestly, Dragon, to me, I feel like eventually that kind of comes down to the film's detriment, unfortunately. I don't necessarily like, I feel this is where my snobbishness is going to come through. All right. So forgive me here. I feel like this movie is very much a crowd pleaser movie with not a lot of original substance going on for it. And it did please me, but that's why it's going to make my top 20, but not my top 10. I think that's the That's the distinction to make, Dragon. Every movie in the top 10 of this year, I consider to be, like not, like stuff like Spider-Verse is definitely getting into my top 10. But Spider-Verse, I feel like it's simply, on top of being just a really, really entertaining comic book movie, high art in the, and just the sheer animation style. And to me, Dragon, that's kind of the thing that's missing from Aquaman. As fun as Aquaman is, it's just like I don't really feel like it's got a lot setting it apart from the crowd, except for the fact that it is this unique amalgamation of different things. Does that make any sense, or am I just sounding like a pretentious asshole?
Well, I mean, here's the thing, Tiki. I don't think derivative is the right word. I don't think it's the right. I don't think that's right because you have like it's the age old kind of storytelling philosophy of every story's been told. It's like every story's been told. And we're just kind of working with that. It always is the handicap. Anytime we do a movie, we do a story here, and I think we got to give a little bit more credit to kind of that mixture of types of story, because on the whole it's doing King Arthur. I mean, you look at Star Wars, there's always a bit of kind of like a little kind of classic medieval kind of Arthurian lore there. So there's always a bit like, oh, if you say it's a bit of Star Wars, it's a bit of this, it's a bit of that, because that's just storytelling in a nutshell. And we've seen it before because every story's been told so many times. So I'm not sure that's quite a fair point. I see what you're saying. I don't quite agree with it, but go figure. I don't know. It's I mean, again, I think there was kind of there was a fresh mixture of that made it feel overall a little fresh. And again, I think a lot of even if it is a little derivative, again, I think the main point of comparison is that it is kind of like it's kind of Black Panther done in a different direction. It's kind of what it feels like on the whole in terms of what we're comparing it to. And Black Panther is kind of next level in a way. So I think it's kind of next level going in a different direction though. So maybe. Not to this again. I'm not comparing it directly to Black Panther. Those are two very separately different movies. But again, you have the guy who, like Black Panther is a story of a guy accepting being king, and the other one's a story about a guy who's like on a journey to become a king.
Mm-hmm.
Like T'Challa is like he's a king who's just kind of seeing what a king really is. Where again, it's the King Arthur tale with Aquaman. So those are two very diametrically different stories. So that's where I'm coming at it
from. All right, Dragon. This is basically my only other con, to tell you the truth. I really feel like the treasure hunting thing was a little bit too episodic for my taste, in all honesty. Even though the different sequences were fine, especially the all the stuff with Ocean Master was wonderful. The stuff in Italy, all that stuff is great. But take that out. For example, I knew that this scene would feel out of place as soon as I saw it in the trailer, and it really is out of place. I'm just like not a big fan of the desert scene, Dragon. It feels more like National Treasure than it does Aquaman to me, and it's like I don't know if they just thought they were being clever. Like, hey, we'll do a scene in an Aquaman movie that's completely in the desert, hardy har har, or what? But I don't know, man. It's just that's the thing. I feel like on top of like maybe one too many location hops in the movie. Like we've already gone over this off camera. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but for me, the mythology of it just got a little bit too overly complicated. I mean, I know you're going to say that it's straight out of the comic book and whatever, and I know you're going to say that you followed it just fine. That's completely cool. I respect that, but I've seen this movie twice, and I still, I can't exactly tell you why everything is happening. I'm just kind of like along for the ride. And I don't know. It's like that's kind of the point of comparison that I make to Pirates of the Caribbean for me, is that it just feels like it runs on its own eternal logic that gets maybe a little bit too complicated at times. But I know you disagree, so I don't want to dwell on this point very much. But other than that, that's basically the only thing I really can say against the film. I think overall it's a very likable film. So.
Well, I wasn't going to say that. What I was going to say is, maybe we didn't need seven. We didn't need. You're right. We do convoluted with the seven king. We didn't need seven kingdoms in Atlantis. I think we just the fact we globetrot a lot and we have like many kingdoms already in Atlantis. I don't understand why we didn't just have just just the one king. Usually, I'm used to just there being one king in Atlantis. Usually Aquaman, but whoever's on the throne being the point. And we have like, okay, so they all have to reach an arrangement. If they're, it's kind of like in Black Panther, we have like the five sections of Wakanda, and we kind of did that with many kingdoms, and the fact there's some dried up kingdoms on the land. So that, I think it's convoluted, but at the end of the day, I would say it does. I don't think it gets in the way, because it's all we're just basically without getting to the whole thing. It's very simple. It's a hunt for a Triton. That's all that is on the land. We're looking for the Triton, you know.
Mhm.
But let's see. Anything in regards to cons, I wish there was this.
I mean, to be fair, it's not necessarily the Triton itself that confuses me. It's more like the how the hierarchy of the Atlantean culture works. But again, I don't really want to dive too much into that because I'm sure you have explanations, and that's not really the point. The point is that to me, it wasn't very clearly represented. But again, subjectivity and whatnot. So,
Well, I don't. But again, I'm not the Uber Aquaman guy. I don't know how many. Again, I'm used to there just being like a one guy on the throne. I don't know about all the separate kingdoms. I don't get anything on that. So anyway, let me see. There's some other cons there. Like let me tell you this. I was in the theater. The big Leviathan scene. The whole when that Leviathan scene with with the Julie Andrews Leviathan. When I was going on. I was in the theater. I was wondering, okay, are they going to go the smart way of this? Or are they going to go like the predictable way of this? And they met me in the middle. And I wish they kind of went just all the way in the smart direction with it. So again, at least it met me in the middle. So it's kind of a nitpick more than a con. But it's like I was hoping that okay, he can talk to fish. He's going to talk to Leviathan, which has never happened, I presume, in any of the guys who are coming to get the Trident. Therefore, it's going to win the Leviathan over. But no, we have to start off a little bit of a fight scene before we realize, like, come on, guys, why can't we just cut through the mustard? Let's talk to the thing first. Like, why does it have to be a fight?
mhm.
But again, kind of met in the middle on that one. Here's something, just a little semantical thing. Like, well, I don't understand why I wish they stated this more clearly. Again, it's kind of implied, but they still could have stated clearly. Why can some Atlanteans breathe on land and others, like the stormtrooper guys? The Atlantean guards, when their helmets malfunction, they like one guy has to go to the toilet. It's like they need water, and again that's fine. But I wish there was a line like saying like Mira, she's mastered the arts, and like basically Mira and Orm can survive without on land, and then Volko as well. Like I wish we established that a little bit. Like a line where it just takes some, you have to get used to it or something like that. Like warriors trained for it. I don't know, something.
Uh-huh.
Um, let's see. Again, okay, let me talk about the Justice League of it all real quick. So, Justice League of it all is there's a bit of there's definitely a kind of a plot hole. There's definitely kind of a plot hole with all the Justice League stuff because they had a very different take on what they were doing with Aquaman. Like Aquaman was mad at his mother and all that stuff that happened to him. Basically, it was going in a very different direction than it would have gone in this movie. So they basically, okay, so he face step and wolf. So basically, Justice League as a whole happened, but that scene where he was going to get the box, that was also important. And Aquaman was in that fishing town. That's not where he is at the start of this movie. So we're just going to forget those two parts. We're going to remember the ending of the movie, essentially. That's all we're really going to remember from any of this. Basically, they kind of threw out a lot of what they do with Justice League, but basically Justice League happened, but it happened better in their minds and the recollections of it. That's kind of what they went with. So it's but at the end of the day, who cares? All right, just care about the good Aquaman. Who cares about the Justice League at this point? That's the thing.
Yeah, I'm on the same wavelength as you. It doesn't really bother me.
Yeah. And maybe I heard that I kind of agree with this. There's a little we overly CG in places with the Atlantean designs. Like in places we could have just like had people underwater, like CG the hair surely do the underwater effect. But for the people who aren't fish guys, why are they CG? You have some.
I feel the exact same way. To me, it's to me, I love the design of Atlantis. I love all the aesthetic of it, but to me it almost feels like it's too overly crowded with CG, and that's a shame because it almost feels like too much of a good thing in some ways.
Now on to some I'm gonna rapid fire some pros here. Of course, Black Manta. I think we got a good cast. Going the King Arthur route, I was very impressed by. Against a no-brainer, it was straightforward though. I love Aquaman as the local hero, which we'll talk about very momentarily. Yeah, I think we have some classic set. I like some of the classic set pieces we have. We have subs, we have Atlantis, we have a lighthouse. We're on a boat for a portion. Like those are the set pieces I really like that we have. Telepathy rings. We got the telepathy rings when he's talking to fish. That rocks. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a great sense of fun, color, and adventure in the movie. And I got some great Wanian shots we'll talk about more detail. Again, just they have some solid action set pieces, like Florence, Italy got some solid action set pieces there. It's not worried about being it's not worried about being part of the greater DCEU. It's not worried about like we have to reference all sorts of things and put things in the places. It's Aquaman. That's all we're worried about at the moment. The movie, it's good. And again, they're doing the costumes verbatim, like Aquaman in the orange and green. Orm is in his Ocean Master costume, which is ridiculous, but they pulled it off and they made it look cool. And the mask even moves with his expressions, and of course, Black Manta, say no more. So all of that, so that's pretty much that's a number of pros there. So let's talk about our favorite moments.
All right, so I believe that I have the first stuff, right?
Yes, you do.
Okay, so yeah, I just just in general, Dragon, like I said, I liked pretty much all of the first act of this movie. I love all the little exchanges with Tom in Atlanta, like I am Atlanta, Queen of Atlantis. I am Tom, Keeper of Lighthouse. Just kind of like the very humanistic charm that sort of radiates through the first act of this movie that I feel like carries a lot of the goodwill that I have towards it. And one of the instances that we see of that is in I Love the Submarine Rescue. I already mentioned one of my favorite lines is a subtitled like "Hurry up, I'm missing happy hour for this." But I don't know, Dragon. To me, there's something like very cocksure and early 2000s in the same way that Venom kind of felt like a throwback to early 2000s superhero movies, where it was like this movie doesn't need to exist in its own cinematic universe or whatever. It doesn't need to reference outside factors. All it needs to do is present the hero and present the hero in a fun way and a way that's accurate to the comics. And we're going to enjoy it. And I don't think any moment in the whole movie sums that up better than when Aquaman first comes aboard the submarine at the start of the film, and he's just like, very cockily, he's just like, permission to come aboard. I don't know. What do you think, Dragon? I feel like that's very much something that you would see in a standalone early 2000s superhero movie in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. It's a great entrance. It's kind of a classic great entrance for your hero that does feel like a little just again, it's just kind of have. I just love that it's Aquaman, the kind of this confined space, just kind of knocking heads and everything. It feels like trailer fodder, and I mean this in a good way. It feels like kind of like that early 2000s trailer fodder of like Spider-Man going to town on the on the bad guys in a trailer if they were selling a Raimi Spider-Man or something like that. It feels really. I think Daredevil would be the more apt comparison. It feels a little bit like kind of that 2003 Daredevil vibe, but in a good way.
Mm-hmm. All right, then very shortly after that, we have the bar scene, and this is just one of my favorite down to earth moments in the whole film. Dragon,
This is a great one. I love this.
This got a huge reaction out of the theater each time I saw it. Of course, I do like the idea of Aquaman being this kind of the saving the being the defender of the ocean is kind of like just a side gig for this guy. He's kind of modest about it. He's just like, yeah, it's a little side work I do on the side. I don't want to. It's nothing special. And then, of course, we get that great kind of, I had a fun time seeing this movie with my coworker, Dragon, because my coworker, when the bikers came up, she was like, "Oh no!" And of course, I knew what was going to happen, so I was like, "Oh, this is going to be great." The bikers are just like, "Hey, you're that fish boy, aren't you?"
Fishman.
What do you want? Can we get a selfie?
This is great. It's such a great subversion. It's what it is. It's just,
and then, of course, I love that the guy has like this pink phone.
Yeah, it's great. Like no touchy. Yeah, it's just it's just cool. It's just really it's
And then, of course, we
refreshing.
get that really quick, very well edited montage of, the still pictures of Aquaman getting more and more intoxicated with these guys.
Which is delightful. And again, these are the moments I love. Like, I can't wait to see more moments like these in like Shazam and especially in Wonder Woman 2. Like the heroes just having these really human interactions with people. That's what I live for. Too. I love these sorts of moments.
All right, and finally, Dragon, probably the most bombastic, altruistic, and James Wan-y sequence of the whole thing is,
Trench.
yeah, the trench. Holy crap! This was a sight to behold, and this is where I feel like the CG and the design work really came together, man. I mean, I don't even know what to say about this beyond the fact that it's great James Wan nightmare fuel. Like, honestly, I wish more of the movie was like this. Like, if they take the sequel in a darker direction and James Wan is still attached, I'd like to see more sequences like this. But my God, Dragon, this is as someone who loves James Wan and his horror work, this is a great kind of like my first James Wan horror sequence. It really is.
This is the thing. James Wan had the bases loaded in the best of ways because this is purely Jeff Johns stuff, Tiki. This thing, the trench, the whole idea of the trench. That's something I can vouch for. That's from the Jeff Johns comics, and everyone loves this from the comic where they look just like they do there. They're just really these terrifying monsters that Aquaman's surrounded by. Like various covers of the comics and everything, they're always it's really great kind of splash shots and like kind of great money shots of these guys. And James Wan must have been in heaven being able to realize these in live action.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to your moments, Dragon.
All right, my moments. Okay, so easily my favorite thing in the whole movie, easily, is the it's in the first act. It's the Aquaman and
I'm
Black
telling you,
Man.
man, the first act of this movie is really firing on all cylinders. It really is.
It is. It is. Again, like I'm with. Look, I echo your sentiments. Again, I would. I mean, I love seeing the heroes out of their element, kind of deal. Basically, kind of a hero doing their thing in their setting, whether it's a city or a small fishing town, whatever. I love
Uh-huh.
seeing that. So I'm down for that Aquaman movie idea. I'm all the way down for that anyway. So on the sub, it's the Aquaman Black Manta scene. The first time they meet each other, but not just like that whole. It's a good fight in itself, but specifically the big moment of choice, the death of Black Manta's father. I loved it because again, I don't think again from what I know about Black Manta, I don't believe again. I'm pretty sure this is an original idea for these two characters. I don't know if I've ever seen the father thing. I mean, there's a chance that he might have died. I can guarantee it was a different type of scene, though. If that happened, it was very different than the way it happened here. And the point is, I just love everything about this scene. Basically, this is a mythic event between these characters because, again, classic Aquaman and Black Manta hate each other, especially Black Manta. I love that we gave Black Manta a reason to hate Aquaman, and again, it was a reason that it wasn't Aquaman killing his father, but it was Aquaman making a choice that would haunt him. And this is a beautiful moment here, where
Uh-huh.
the mythic moment for these two characters, and for the story of the movie, and for something basically Aquaman is going to offer a moment of change almost, and it's a big moment of growth for Aquaman that pays off later on, where Black Manta very desperately. The bad guy is defeated. His father. Basically, Aquaman, he does something bad in that he pins his father to the wall with the tray. And again, his father shot him with this thing. Actually hurt him because he was pretty much untouchable during the whole scene. So like this giant gun kind of singed him for a bit. Like ow. So again, but then Aquaman kind of returned the favor. So again, the bad guys had it coming here, but importantly, they didn't deserve the. Well, they did kill some people on board too. So the point is, they definitely deserved a whooping, to say the least. They did. Now, I mean, I love that Aquaman. It's not like the Snyder thing of what we had, where Batman's like killing people or nearly killing people all the time through Batman v Superman. And both, I emphasize both. He nearly killed people and he did kill people, which made my heart break in that movie. The point is, we didn't do any of that here. And we just had this beautiful bit where Black Manta desperately is begging. I love how the shot's composed too. Like the sub's taking on water, which Aquaman's going to be fine with, even if it just stood there. It'd be really evil if it just stood there and watched it happen. But Aquaman, he's begging it out, and Black Manta is just like begging him for help. Like, please, he's going to die.
Oh God.
No, seriously, he's Black Manta is begging for help, and Aquaman saying, you're a pirate. You guys just going to keep on doing this. So again, just like it's kind of a Batman Begins. It's basically the Batman Begins line kind of taken to a really great thematic character place.
It is, yeah.
So I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. But taken to the next level in the best of ways. That's what this scene is. And again, it fuels the hatred that Black Manta has. And importantly, and this is very important, and I love this, the fact that it's something that revolves around a father and a son. Which again, initially I was thinking Doom for Tom Curry. I thought Black Manta was going to kill his father in this movie, but never say never. I thought Black Manta was going to kill Tom Curry. Now, never say never on that, but still, let's just say the history between Black Manta and Aquaman involves fathers and sons in a big way in terms of Black Manta harming Aquaman in a very profound way. More on that later, but let's just say, so this scene was perfect to me. It's a great moment. Just seeing growth. And Aquaman's not that guy who's he won't kill the bad guys, but he's gonna be smart enough to. Again, he's the guy that worries about happy hour and stuff, and he's just gonna be the guy who's not gonna be. He's not going to be like a Superman type. He's not going to save everybody, but he's going to be a little smarter about who he saves and choosing who he saves. Like he might not be as kind to the bad guys, and it's kind of the closest thing you have to Aquaman being in the comics. He has been a tough guy, a guy who's going to be unforgiving for guys who commit crimes against the surface world, but he's not in tune with Atlantis yet. So we kind of have that mentality before he kind of falls in love with Atlantis. So I love that we have that moment up front in the movie. It's all great. So I love that. Okay. The other one's going to go by a lot quicker. So the other moment, basically, big payoff to that. Aquaman and Black Manta having their fight in Italy. It looks great. It's Black Manta looks
wonderful.
It's
like a really, really well composed action scene, Dragon. It's very well shot. It's it's kind of like the antithesis of the Transformers movies minus Bumblebee, where you could very much tell what's going on and you can follow the action very clearly.
And again, it's very simple. That now
nothing in modern day action movies.
Sure, and again, the important thing is that Aquaman can be hurt by the Atlantean beams that are built in the Black Manta's eyes. It's very clear cut, very simple. Okay, now Aquaman could be hurt. Now the playing field is even on land. So now there's actual stakes. It's like the ultimate rematch. And the important thing I really want to emphasize is, as great as the fight is, what I love more so is the aftermath, where Aquaman's lamenting to Mira that I made an enemy when I didn't have to. He's lamenting on his folly. It's seeing Aquaman kind of a vulnerable state after the battle. I love that. That shows you he's going to be a great king. So I love that scene. Okay. Lastly, a very simple. This one's very, very simple. So lastly, it's just one visual. Aquaman the classic orange and gold, riding a seahorse with a trident in the battle.
Yep.
So basically, the only thing I have to say with this is
that it's kind of got that Ragnarok like heavy metal album cover. It's like it's the Hulk fighting a giant wolf on a rainbow bridge. What more do you need?
Zombie wolf. No, but here's the cool thing. Here's the thing about it. So basically, that image in itself it's the Super Friends image that you've seen all the time. It's the exact image on Super Friends with a trident, but it's the same image of Aquaman riding the seahorse. And what we've done here is it's James Wan earning and essentially redeeming the absurdity. The whole movie hinges on earning the orange and gold that Aquaman wears, and they did it. And again, not only that, he's going to up the ante by putting him on a seahorse to ride in the battle. And again, it's so ridiculous. This thing people have mocked for decades, made cool. And I love this. That's like the ultimate. Right. That's like the ultimate image of success for James Wan. He made that image cool. He redeemed Aquaman to everybody. That's great. Okay. All right, so I guess let's speculate a little bit on the future.
So yeah, Dragon, I totally I would be shocked if Tom made it out of Aquaman 2 alive. Just like if I were a betting man in Vegas, I would, the payoff for betting that Tom dies in Aquaman 2 would be pretty low.
So let me tell you this, Tiki. So in the comics, the reason Black Manta is the arch enemy of Aquaman, the reason Black Manta, aside from a cool visual, the reason, for many people, he was kind of the Darth Vader of comics for a while. He was that big for a while. The point is, Black Manta, his big claim to fame, the reason he's he's an end all be all, the reason he's a very popular villain, he killed Aquaman's infant son in comics.
Oh wow!
So that's his big claim to fame. That's why they hate each other so much.
Uh-huh.
And so again, he got revenge. Again, he was always like, Aquaman was always in his way, so he got revenge on him. And Black Man being the mirthless killer that he is, he would do something like that. I don't know if I'm not sure about the father backstory on Black Manta, if there was something like that in their past. I'm really not sure. I don't think so, though. But the point is, I don't know if there's going to be a time jump. Maybe he and Mira could have a child, and maybe they're going to take it that way. I don't know. But regardless, either they're going to do like verbatim with the child if they want to go really bold and gutsy with it. I applaud them if they did that, man. I'm not saying they have to, but if they did, wow. But again, it's either the baby or it's going to be Tom Curry. I'll bet you that, even money. They do another one, that's going to be Black Manta getting his revenge, killing his father or killing his son. Again, a father
You
and
know
son.
what? I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we see both Tom and Willem Dafoe go down. You know, like the father and the father figure.
Well, I'll tell you this thing. I was amazed his mother survived because a lot of the times the mother gets killed off. Like Orm killed the mother in one of the animated movies once. I was kind of expecting that during the movie. So
I vaguely remember that.
that's the thing. I imagine that basically, here's the thing. I imagine that if Tom doesn't die, then I think that basically before Volko dies, before Defoe dies, I think the mother's going to die. That's what I think.
Okay.
Plus, Nicole Kidman, I'm sure, is not cheap.
She's having a good year, man. She really is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think she's going to be in demand and doing other things. I think they have to like, well, we can't bring her back for every movie. We gotta ask her. But
Okay,
yes,
let me ask the big question though.
okay.
What do you think this means for the DCEU going forward?
Here's what I think. I think this implies one of two paths. So the implication, the way I think the things were going, the way the gears were moving, and I think the way this still could go, by all means, is that we're going to keep what I always thought they're going to keep what works, and then reinvent the rest. Like the things that work would be Wonder. They're going to keep Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman and Jason Momoa as Aquaman, and Jason Momoa recently has implied that Henry Cavill's still playing Superman. Now I don't know what to make of that. I mean,
I
I
really take that with a grain of salt, Dragon. I really do, especially because it's like, like I don't really think that people are giving Momoa like, real insight into like, yeah, it's he's definitely still on. I don't know. I think that's I mean, don't get me wrong. I would like to see Cavill play Superman just because I think that Justice League was finally the movie where Cavill got comfortable in the character. So, I'd like to see him live up to his full potential without the mustache gate attached to it.
Well, me too. You know me. My mindset on this again. I want Cavill to still be Superman. I'm hoping against hopes that he can still just again whatever happens. I would love him to return to the role as the fully formed Superman that we kind of got at the end of Justice League. I want him to be that. I want that for him because he deserves that, and I'd love to see him again in the role. Here's the thing, though. Here's the interesting thing about Momoa. Momoa, he's been kind of making a target of himself lately in Hollywood. Now, not in a bad way. I mean, in a way that basically he's been saying things that Hollywood doesn't want an actor to say. He's been a little too open and honest, and I'm sure this Cavill thing is not helping him either. So Momoa, if he's not careful, again, like Momoa's just being really honest, which makes me think he might be on the money about the Cavill thing, which kind of I don't know, because again, he's kind of Momoa's acting like a guy with nothing to lose. He's a very humble, really open guy. It's kind of there's nothing negative about Momoa. It's just that I think Hollywood might be, I don't know, they might make an example of him if they're not careful. I don't mean that in like a sinister way. It's just like I don't know, you never know. But so basically, it's one of two paths. So the Cavill thing could go either way. So basically, I've always assumed that what they're going to do is they're going to keep what works being Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and then they're going to basically reinvent the rest. Like I wouldn't expect Ezra Miller to come back as the Flash, like that sort of thing.
Which is a shame because I feel like people give him such a hard time, and I actually liked him in the role.
True, and again, I liked him in the role too. I mean, I don't know if I go to bat for him, but I mean, I liked him though in the role. I wouldn't mind seeing him again. I don't know if it's going to be like it's Ezra Miller or nothing. Like I don't know if I go that far.
Right. I wouldn't go that far either.
That's the thing. Then here's the thing. So basically, like things like lingering things like there's no definite ruling on Ezra Miller and the fact about this whole Henry Cavill thing. But again, regardless, I'm saying the other way could go is that this movie performed well. So the point is this movie is successful, which means we're very likely getting Aquaman 2, which implies they want to at least keep this aspect of the DCEU going. So again, way one, we keep what works and we reinvent the rest. But again, getting the Joker movie on the side and everything else. Shazam is walking a line where Shazam is using the imagery of stuff from the DCEU, like the Aquaman symbol from from the Justice League movie, and like the batarangs and the style of Batman v Superman. So again, all of this is still like Shazam could be either way. They don't have to, if they don't reference anything else, they could again without. It basically it's in the same space that Aquaman's in. That basically Justice League happened, but we're not talking about it. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So again, they could either go all of that
I
way.
feel like Joker is going to be the really interesting one.
That's what I'm saying. So that's basically it could go that route, or it could go the way of there still exists a DCEU, but down the line, basically they're still going to keep on going with the DCEU, and they're waiting for Joker and Batman, the Joker movie and the Batman to shake things up. Like that's going to be the big shakeup going forward. That's the basically the DCU based on the success of Aquaman 2 could still be in effect, but Joker is going to be the only thing them testing it because again, this Birds of Prey movie is supposed to be in the DCEU, which makes me think they're still keeping on the DCEU path.
Right.
So that's the thing. I think that implies they're still trying to keep the DCU alive, but again, Joker's going to be the first thing outside of the DCU they're making, and then the Batman will be a question of, okay, are they going completely disconnected from it, or are they just recasting their Batman? So I think the Batman's going to be the big determination, followed by how the Joker does it. Those are the two that are going to change the game with that whole
At this point, though, with the Batman, it's like it's a matter of like, is it actually ever going to get made? Is it still going to be called The Batman? Is Matt Reeves even still going to make it at this point?
But again, on the whole, I'm hoping for the first. I'm hoping they're keeping what works and just kind of keeping it loosey-goosey for the rest. I think that's the smartest way to proceed, which would allow for maybe a Cavill, but even if not, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
For sure.
All right, and I think
that's
that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, final thoughts, Dragon. I definitely like the first act of this movie the most. I feel like Act 3 kind of comes back. Act 3 is almost kind of like a Diet Coke version of Thor Ragnarok, where it's the heavy metal imagery. It just doesn't hit quite as hard as Ragnarok does. The movie's got some good stuff in the middle. It's just it gets a little too globetrotty for my taste, but don't get me wrong, the Black Manta set piece in the middle of the film is a standout. So I gotta tell you, Dragon, this is definitely a spoiler cast where, I'm not in love with this movie by any means. I definitely think, in terms of ranking it, it's it's definitely not a Mary Poppins Returns or an Into the Spider-Verse where I'm just like I'm begging to go back to the theater and watch it over and over again. But it is a solid good time at the movies, and I gotta say, you probably did your job of convincing me that it is pretty much definitively the best movie in the DCEU just far. I think that's pretty concrete at this point. I like Justice League for my own weird reasons, but this is definitely, at least on an objective level, I can say this is clearly the best. And it's a good step forward. I still think DC movies can be great and not just really, really good. I still think I'm still waiting for another Dark Knight to come out of the DC. But we'll see where it goes if they chart the course and get more solo stuff out there and, and care less about the cinematic universe part of the equation, which it looks like they're doing with stuff like Shazam, Joker, and Aquaman itself, then I think we're on a good course. We're never going to get to the MCU levels of just, knocking hit after hit after hit out of the park in rapid succession. But I will say, Dragon, I think more people are looking forward to Shazam than are looking forward to Captain Marvel, and say what you will about the marketing for Captain Marvel, but I think that's a good sign moving forward for DC. I think they've got the foot in the right direction.
Yeah, no, I forgot to mention this, so I'll mention real quick here is that with the third act thing, it's the thing. So a part of me hesitates because here's the thing: I would instantly like to say Aquaman is the best one they've done. The only thing that gives me pause is Wonder Woman, but the cool thing about Aquaman is that they got the third act right, where Wonder Woman you don't have. It's like Aquaman to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here. Is that to me, I don't think there's a filter on the third act like there is on every other movie in the DCU, right? Am I crazy about that? It's like the first one that doesn't have the filter in the third act.
What do you mean the filter?
You know, like the filter, as in every third act of all the other movies has like kind of like a color filter, like an overly CG fight scene filter
Oh
on it.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. I
you
mean,
know,
it's
because you
like
have all the chaos going on, it's just a filter. Because at least you could see the action going on in the third act. You could at least follow what's going on. Again, it wasn't like you literally was a red cloud in Justice League.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't think it had a filter. I mean, it was still kind of a CG overload, but I don't think it was like you said. It wasn't hard to follow by any stretch.
Because I mean, it ended up being like not a big like tarmac thing. That's the thing. That was one thing I have to take away from Wonder Woman because again, it basically was doing so well, and then it gets to that like okay, it's Ares fighting Wonder Woman on the big tarmac, which again, like out of like the thing I defend Wonder Woman for is that if I could accept it in one movie, I'd accept Wonder Woman. If I can get rid of it in all the other ones, if I could just get rid of that sort of thing like Batman v Superman and everything else, I could accept it in Wonder Woman. But now it's a systemic problem. We just can't shake even with something like Wonder Woman. But we finally seem to have shaken it with Aquaman because when it gets to like the big mano a mano scene, it's not like a giant space, like a giant like chaos going all around while they're fighting. It's Orm versus Aquaman on that kind of that ship. It's what it kind of boils down to for the third act. Well, the lead up to that is kind of the big CG fight, but at least it's kind of colorful and kind of neat looking.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so final thoughts very simple: is the film delivered big time. It delivered the film that it promised, and it seemed as good as the marketing kind of hyped it up to be. It was well directed. The glimpse at where DC should have been from the start, in my humble opinion. It's again, it's a simple equation. An Aquaman film that's like Aquaman. Legitimize the ridiculousness by owning it and not apologizing for it. And that's all it takes sometimes, folks. That's all it takes. And it could be, we could be entering a really new prosperous era of prosperity for DC, and I'm rooting for it to go that way. I'm looking very forward to Shazam. I'm intrigued by the Joker movie. I'm very looking forward to Wonder Woman 2. Wonder Woman 2 looks really good from the very little I've seen of it, and basically Wonder Woman 2 is doing what I always wanted to see with Wonder Woman. So again, DC seems to be on the upswing. They're still uncertain about their broader future, but I mean, basically in the kind of the more immediate future, they seem to have things. Didn't have things figured out, and it seemed to have things seem to be going good. At the very least, we got a very good Aquaman movie out of anything. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, folks. It's been a pleasure. Stay tuned because we've got a bunch of other DC stuff coming your way. On Friday, we'll be recapping episode 1 of the last season of Gotham. And then on Sunday night, I'm sorry, Dragon. I just read Monday night. Monday night, we're going to be doing, my bad. Monday night, we're going to be doing the our big annual, the big blowout movies. Every movie I saw this year ranked, which is close to 60. We'll see if Aquaman makes it into the top 20. I can't guarantee it, but it's definitely going to be in the top third of movies I've seen this year. All right, so thank you so much for joining us, folks, and have a good night.
Missing happy hour.
Tom, keeper of Lighthouse.